Testing 1, 2, 3. For those of you that are watching, we'll be starting in just a moment here. You know what? I don't think that the link we sent out is the correct one. I think it's another link.
Says you're live now. 6 waiting.
I'm live now for
Yeah, it says right there, example B, if you're on there.
the link you sent.
The link I sent out.
Okay, that's the important thing. Okay. We are according, well, you're in front of my timer. 10 seconds. Hitting record. Closing out the email. Can you listen to the sound and see if it sounds okay?
Testing.
So anyway, testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me okay? Sounds good? Okay, we're going to get started in just a moment here. Here, let me get to this. Okay. We good? Okay, folks. For those of you that are watching here, we're redoing the video we did last week here, and I'm sorry that we had problems with our video. The other thing with this is we're going to go to another platform after what happened last week. So you'll still be able to find us on YouTube, but for those of you that are interested in continuing with this series, and of course we always record these things here, we're going to make a slight change to a different platform that we can count on. Okay, so I'm going to take a deep breath and we're going to begin here. Hi, this is Steve Dale, and we're recording this on June 26, 2018. This is part of our continuing legal education series for the Golden State Pool Trust. And today's program is going to be on issues having to do with housing and special needs trusts here. Now, as always, and as we're going to go through this, the program has been approved for 1 unit of MCLE credit by the California State Bar. Each section of this program has a code. So there's 3 codes embedded in the program you need to write down. With this, Shelley or Amy can send you a form to fill out, but you need to put in the codes in order to show that you watch the program to get the credit. Now, to contact Shelley, her email is Shelley, Shelley, at gspt.org, or you can email Amy here at amy@gspt.org, and you can ask for the forms, the materials here, and also to be put on our mailing list for future programs. So the following information is intended as guidance only, and it's not a substitute for legal counseling. As we're going to see as we go through this, a lot of the issues we're going to be dealing with have a certain level of complexity to them. here. So we're going to go through concepts, but one of the reasons we're teaching this as a CLE course for attorneys and fiduciaries here is to really work through some common issues when we're dealing with housing and special needs trusts. What we're going to cover this in 5 sections. So the first is going to be on how to calculate what in-kind support and maintenance is, and even what is in-kind support and maintenance, and how to calculate household expenses. Okay, the next section is going to talk about paying rent or paying for food and shelter items here when you're on SSI. The next session after that is going to be on paying for food and shelter items if you're not receiving SSI. And the last section is going to be our new tool, which is ABLE accounts with special needs trusts. So let's plow through this. By the way, for those of you that are watching live, Amy is watching the chat box. So if you type in questions, when we get to the end of the program, Amy will once again help me figure out what the questions are, and I'll do my best to answer them. So section 1, how to calculate an ISM reduction and household expenses. Now, with this, these materials can be found at this link here, which is on the Social Security website. And this is actually a pretty useful link. The portions of the program that are with our blue background are copied word for word from the Social Security webpage. And the only modifications that I made is to bring things up to 2018 rates for California, since we have a state supplement. All other slides are mine. Okay, so let's plow through this here. So the first thing we're going to look at here as we talk about this is it's always important to once again understand that there are 3 types of income when we're talking about SSI. And hold on just a moment. We're going to figure out what's going on here. And I am so sorry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to restart this. Okay, that should be better. Okay, let me go back to this. So, going back to this, whenever we're talking about benefits here, we're talking about 3 types of income. Today we're only going to talk about 2. The first is unearned income, or any cash you receive from wherever you get it will reduce your SSI dollar for dollar after the first $20, which is I often call the $20 disregard. The other thing we're going to be talking about a great deal is what the concept called in-kind support and maintenance, which is the actual receipt of food and shelter or something that can be used to get one of these. As we're going to see, the maximum reduction for paying for food and shelter here is $270 in 2018, and we're really going to dig into this in a moment. So to calculate in-kind support and maintenance, there's 10 items that Social Security counts for SSI beneficiaries. And these are food, mortgage, including property insurance, real estate taxes, rent, heating, fuel, gas, electricity, water, sewer, and garbage removal. Now, when we're looking at these things, it's important to think about what is on the list, but also what is not on the list. So if you pay for things like telephone or improvements to a house, or if you pay for internet or cable, those are not something that's on that list. And you can freely pay that with a special needs trust as long as you pay for it directly without a reduction in benefits. So now we're going to go to what is on the Social Security webpage. What is in-kind support and maintenance? In-kind support and maintenance is food or shelter that somebody else provides for you. Social Security counts in-kind support and maintenance as income when they figure out the amount of a SSI recipient's benefits. Okay? For example, if someone pays for your rent, mortgage, food, or utilities, Social Security will reduce the SSI benefits because you're receiving in-kind support and maintenance, and they can reduce your SSI benefits as much as $270 depending on the value of the assistance that you get. So here's an example. What's really nice about this is it has a whole series of examples here. So the first example is, suppose that you live alone and your only income is SSI. Your brother pays your rent of $800. What a good brother, okay? Social Security will count this payment as in-kind support and maintenance. Although the rent is $800, they limit how much of the $800 is counted by what is called the presumed maximum value. And the presumed maximum value equals 1/3 of the federal part of the SSI plus $20. Now the federal amount of the SSI in 2018 is $750. So what they do is they take the $750, divide it by 3, and add $20. So let's see how they do the calculations. Here's how they do it. They take the federal benefit rate, they don't count the state supplement. They take 1/3 of the federal benefit rate. In this case, it's real easy. It's $250. Plus they add $20 to make it $270. You take the $270 of the presumed maximum value and they subtract out the $20 general exclusion, income exclusion, or what I've always learned it as the $20 disregard, meaning that the actual reduction is $250. Now I know it seems a little Byzantine here, but what they're doing is they're adding in the $20 so they can subtract it out again, okay? So in California in 2018, our federal benefit rate plus our California supplement comes to $910.72. So if you have somebody who is getting $660.72, there's a really good chance that that person is taking the in-kind support and maintenance reduction here. Let's go to the next example, which is, suppose you live alone in a home that you own and your only income is SSI, okay? Your son pays your electric bill of $100, your phone bill of $50, and your cable bill of $75. Social Security does not count the payment of the phone bill or the cable bill as in-kind support and maintenance. Remember, that was not on the list of the 10 things they count. So these payments do not affect the SSI benefits as long as you pay for them directly. However, they do count the $100 electric bill as in-kind support and maintenance. And since SSI is the only income the person is receiving here, then they apply the $20 general exclusion to the $100 payment, meaning that they're going to count here, they are going to count a loss of benefits here. Here, and I want to see what's going on. Oh, no. Okay, we had a little problem here, and what I'm going to do at this point is we'll just go through the program here, and without without my image, which you're just going to have to live with that. So anyway. So anyway, let's go to example B. If you live alone in a home that you own. Suppose you live alone in a home that you own and your only income is SSI. Your son pays your electric bill of $100, so your phone bill of $50 and your cable bill of $75 a month. Social Security does not count the payment of the phone bill or the cable bill as in-kind support and maintenance, so these payments do not affect the SSI benefits here. However, they do count the payment of the $100 electric bill as in-kind support and maintenance. Because the SSI is your only income, Social Security will apply a $20 general exclusion to the $100 electric bill payment. This leaves $80 as in-kind support and maintenance here. So here's how they figure out the amounts as follows. You take the $100 in-kind support and maintenance, subtract the $20 general exclusion, which equals $80, the reduction due of in-kind support and maintenance. Once again, if you take our California rate and subtract that, that's going to leave you $830.72 for your SSI benefits. Now in this situation, let me go back to the end of this slide. I would say that that's not a very good deal, because even though you're getting the assistance with the electricity, you're only going to be $20 ahead. So in that case, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to pay for the electricity. It probably makes more sense to pay for something else that's not on the list. Let's go through example C if you live in another person's household and share expenses. Suppose you live with your brother and two uncles in a home that your brother is buying and your only income is SSI. There are 4 people in the household and the mortgage payment is $700. The average monthly bills are $200 for electricity, $100 for water and sewer, and $600 for food. The total monthly expenses are $1,600 because there's 4 people in the household and your share of the expenses is $400. Now this is very important. So really, if you go back and take a look at this, those 3 things that are being paid, or the 4 things, the mortgage, here the electricity, the water, and the food, those are 4 of the 10 things that they count, totaling $1,600. You divide that by 4 and your fair share for that household is $400. If you pay your full share of the $400 for the household expenses, there would be no reduction in your benefits and you would get the full $910.72 in your SSI check. If you were to pay less than $400, then you would be receiving in-kind support and maintenance, and Social Security would apply the 1/3 reduction rule, and the $910.72 would be reduced by $250 here, and your SSI benefits would be back to our common number, which is $660.72. Let's go through the last example here. Suppose you live in a house owned by your sister who allows you to live there rent-free. You receive $300 a month of Social Security benefits. You pay all the utilities, food, and buy all the food. Social Security determines that the house would rent for $900 a month if your sister rented it on the open market. Now, oftentimes when we're trying to figure out what the amount would be in a case like that, we're going to look on Craigslist or something to find some sort of a common number. The rent-free house is counted as income, as in-kind support and maintenance. And although the value of the rent-free house is $900 a month, they count $270 as the in-kind support and maintenance. Once again, that's the presumed maximum value. So here's how they do the calculation again. We would determine your SSI benefits as follows. You would take the Social Security benefits that you receive in this case, subtract $20, here your $20 disregard, meaning that you would have $280 of countable Social Security benefits. Then you would take your $910.72 and subtract out the $280 here of countable Social Security benefits, which give you $930.72 here total. So you would take your $470 subtotal and subtract out of that the $270 here of in-kind support and maintenance, leaving $360.72 of your SSI benefits. So here's some strategies to minimize your ISM reduction. If it's possible, pay all your ISM from your SSI and have your Golden State Pool Trust account pay as much of the non-ISM amounts as possible. If you qualify for an ABLE account, consider having your Golden State Pool Trust make payments to an ABLE account and then pay your ISM from that. Okay, and we'll have more on that in a minute. Now, for those of you that are watching for credit, the first MCLE code is 6346. That's 6346. And I'm going to take about just a moment to hook something up here. So excuse me, and I'm sorry that we're having some technical difficulties, but that seems to be to go with the territory here. Okay, let's plow ahead here. So the next section is going to be, can a special needs trust pay rent when you're receiving SSI? So I hear all the time that folks are told that with a special needs trust, you cannot pay for food and shelter. And of course, the most important thing that many folks are looking for is paying for food and shelter here. So there's a three-step process. You'll notice here, and we're taking this from a short video that we do with GSPT on this subject. So there's a three-step process we follow here. And the first part is find out exactly what benefits the beneficiary is receiving. Now, whether you're a trustee or an attorney or even a person with a disability who's receiving benefits, it's really common that someone will think they're on SSI and they're on Social Security, or think they're on Social Security disability and think they're on SSI. So it's one of these things that I know we at the Golden State Pool Trust, we believe in trusting but also verifying in these situations here. So we'll oftentimes ask you to get a letter or a verification from Social Security about exactly what you're receiving. Step 2 is evaluate the consequences of the distribution on the benefits. And step 3 is to report to the proper agency. Okay, so let's go through the steps. In most cases, maintaining eligibility for Medi-Cal is of primary importance. For many of the beneficiaries we work with, we've gone through a process already just trying to figure out what the value of the benefits are. And so, for instance, for many, losing Medi-Cal is really important here for that not to happen. So the first question we have to analyze is whether we are subject to SSI or Medi-Cal rules. So for many beneficiaries, Medi-Cal eligibility is based on maintaining at least $1 of SSI eligibility, but that is not the only way to do it. It can also be maintained independently. So payment of food or shelter from a trust account will reduce the beneficiary's SSI dollar for dollar, capped at what Social Security calls the presumed maximum value. This is how they figure out the in-kind support and maintenance. In 2018, the presumed maximum value, as we saw, was $270, and this amount changes every year when there's a cost of living adjustment. In some cases, the loss of the $270 is a minor price to pay. In some cases, it could be devastating. Now, as we saw again, and we're going to see this slide come up over and over and over again, here is that there are 10 things that they count when we're talking about SSI here. And those things are hang on. And once again, those things are food, mortgage, real property taxes, rent, heating, fuel, gas, electricity, water, sewer, and garbage. As we had talked about before, those are the only 10 things that they count here. But basically, that's what they count here. And they don't count things like maintenance here or telephone or that sort of thing. So here's an example where this might be advisable. Let's say Jane has $910.72 in SSI. She asked Bob, her trustee, to have her special needs trust pay her rent of $1,200. Jane understands that the benefits will be reduced by $270, but she feels that the benefit of living in a decent apartment outweighs the reduction of her SSI. Here's an example where it wouldn't be advisable. Let's say Bob, her trustee, pays out of her special needs trust, pays her rent to the tune of $350 a month. Okay, Jane's SSI will be reduced by $270, meaning that she's getting little real benefit. Here's an example where payment of the SSI might totally eliminate, or payment of the rent might totally eliminate the SSI. Jane receives $810.72 of SSDI and $120 of SSI for a total of $930.72, which includes the $20 disregard. She asked Bob, her trustee, to have her special needs trust pay her rent of $1,200. Payment of the rent is going to cause a complete loss of SSI, but her SSDI and her Medicare is going to continue. Bob and Jane might elect to have the rent paid by her special needs trust, but she's going to need to maintain her Medi-Cal eligibility without her SSI. Note in this example, as she elects to lose her SSI and maintain her Medi-Cal independently, she'll need to apply at her local county Medi-Cal office. Now, once again, as we had covered, one of the most common ways of maintaining Medi-Cal eligibility is to maintain at least $1 of SSI, which makes you categorically eligible for Medi-Cal. But there's other types, and we're going to talk about this a little more in the next section. So the other types are things like the aged and disabled federal poverty level Medi-Cal, which we'll cover quite a bit. The 250% working disabled program, which we're not going to cover here much today, but this can be a real lifesaver in some situations. Share of cost Medi-Cal, and Medi-Cal under different waiver programs, okay? And we're going to cover that more in the next section. Step 3 is going to be report to the proper agency. If the payment of housing is reportable, then you must report it to the proper agency. If the beneficiary is receiving SSI, then a report must be made to the Social Security Administration. If you're only on Medi-Cal, then you need to report to the local county program. So here is our second MCLE code, which is 4538. That is 4538. Okay. Okay, and we're going to begin in just a moment here, and I'm just trying to see if we can. Can reset this, and no, we can't. Okay, so let's just plow ahead. Here's the third section out of the 5 sections we're covering. Can the Golden State Pool Trust account pay your rent if you're only getting Medi-Cal? Now, once again, this comes from a short video that we have on the website for beneficiaries, but I want to dig into this a little bit deeper. So we have the same situation for many beneficiaries. They get their Medi-Cal for maintaining at least $1 of SSI, and if you're getting any SSI, this is not going to apply. But Medi-Cal can be maintained independently as well. So this segment is only for Medi-Cal recipients who do not receive any SSI. So once again, as we had seen before, not only do we have the SSI categorically based Medi-Cal, but we have the aged and disabled poverty level Medi-Cal, share of cost Medi-Cal, the 250% working disabled program, and Medi-Cal waivers. In this, we're going to talk about the aged and disabled federal poverty level Medi-Cal and share of cost. Okay, so to qualify for Medi-Cal, if you're not on SSI, it's very similar to SSI, but there are some differences. First off, you can either be over the age of 65 or meet one of Social Security's or meet Social Security's definition of being disabled. You also have to have less than $2,000 in assets as an individual or $3,000 as a couple. And you also have to meet a resource test very similar to SSI. So the income limits vary according to family size and program category. Income is used to determine if a person or family is eligible for free Medi-Cal or Medi-Cal with a share of cost. A friend of mine named Daniel Fortuno, he has a way that he explains it is that the aged and disabled Medi-Cal is the good Medi-Cal, and the share of cost Medi-Cal is the evil Medi-Cal, and we want to avoid the evil Medi-Cal. Income over the limit becomes the monthly share of cost. So to qualify, the beneficiary must have less than $1,242 of countable monthly income as an individual, or $1,682 if you're a couple, and that should be good until March of 2019. If a beneficiary's monthly income is higher than $1,242, the beneficiary may still be eligible for Medi-Cal with a share of cost. Under the Medi-Cal share of cost program, the beneficiary must pay the share of cost amount in any month that medical costs are paid. So it doesn't have to be paid every month, but it does have to be paid every month that you access medical services. After the share of cost is paid, Medi-Cal will pay the remaining medical bills. But we're going to show in a minute why share of cost is so undesirable. The share of cost, once again, is only paid for months the beneficiary has medical needs. It's determined according to the beneficiary's monthly income, minus $600 for an individual or $934 for a couple of the beneficiary's monthly income, and any other health insurance premiums the beneficiary pays. So sometimes when somebody is slightly over the share of cost amount, oftentimes you can bring it down by paying any medical or health related premium, like optical insurance or dental insurance or something along that line. So here's an example. Barbara has a monthly income of $1,300. Medi-Cal subtracts $600 for a share of cost of $700. Barbara must pay at least $700 in covered medical expenses or health care premiums in any given month before Medi-Cal covers any of her medical expenses for that month. Now, the total countable income follows the Social Security rules here. And once again, what California says in the CCR is that income in kind is any support or maintenance received in kind from a person other than a responsible relative for housing, utilities, food, clothing. But the other one, and this is the kicker, income in kind shall be considered only if the entire item of need is provided. Okay, so here's a table here that we'll be referring to here that basically says that if we were to pay, for instance, the entire amount of housing for somebody, if we paid their entire rent, then they would value what we paid dollar for dollar, capped at $153. If we paid their entire utilities, every single penny, then they would add $33 to the countable income. If we paid for every bit of food, they would add $86 to that. And if we paid every bit of clothing, they would add $27 of countable income. Now, for each of these, as we're going to see, if the beneficiary, the Medi-Cal recipient, pays any contribution, there's no set amount. We usually figure $20 is a nice number. Why make it $1 and be insulting here? Then, once again, going back to the previous slide, then in that case, they are making some contribution and the entire item is not provided by someone else. So let's go through some examples. Barbara wants her Golden State Pool Trust account to pay her rent of $1,000 a month. Barbara receives $1,100 a month in SSDI. She also receives Medi-Cal under the Aged and Disabled Federal Poverty Level Program. If the Golden State Pool Trust pays the full $1,000, then her countable income will be $1,100 plus $153, which makes her countable income here $1,253. Since $1,253 is greater than $1,242 under the Aged and Disabled Federal Poverty Level Program, she will have a share of cost of $653. $1,253 minus $600. Now you can see where this is very undesirable. If she pays $20 of the rent out of her own pocket and her trust pays the remaining $980, then the payment of rent does not affect her eligibility. So here's the last part of this three-step program. If the payment of the housing is reportable, okay, then you must report to the proper agency. If you're only getting Medi-Cal and not getting SSI, you would need to report that to your local county health department, okay? If you're getting SSI and you're getting Medi-Cal because you're categorically eligible, then this would be unnecessary. So our next section we're going to talk about here is elements of a special needs trust and how it affects housing ownership. Okay, so what the POM says here is that if you own a home, and you can Google this, SI01120.200, if the trustee of a special needs trust holds title to a house as a home for the beneficiary, the house would not be considered a resource to the beneficiary. Well, that makes a certain amount of sense here. It would also not be a resource if the beneficiary moved from the house. So here's a little chart I kind of put together here. And DJ, there's no sense in trying to fix that at this point. I know, yeah. Okay. Here, we're just going to retape it.
Are you sure?
Yeah, the fourth time will be the charm, but we're on live. Okay, so when we go back to issues of home ownership, okay, here, and this is kind of a good chart to go through when you're thinking about this. As far as capacity is concerned, if the home is owned by a third-party trust, it's not going to be subject to a conservatorship, nor would it be in a self-settled trust. But if the property were owned by the individual, it could require a conservatorship of the estate. Now, this would be why owning a home, for instance, in a living trust or something, would be so important here. As far as the sale of the home here, if as far as the sale of the home is concerned, there's no issues if it's held in a third-party trust, and if it's sold, the excess assets can be used for something else. That would be the same thing with the self-settled trust. But the problem with owning the house in the beneficiary's name is if it does need to be replaced, there's a 6-month period where you can do the replacement here. But any excess is going to have to be used for put into a trust or something along that line. For Prop 13, there would be no reassessment no matter what the situation. And as far as payback is concerned, there is no payback if it's in a third-party trust. If the house is in a self-settled trust, then the entire house could be subject to payback. But if it's owned by the individual, it would be subject to a lien for any Medi-Cal used after the age of 55, unless it's held in a living trust. I'm going to take a little break here real quick. Okay, that's not going to work. Here. Let's give it one try, and then we're going to give up. And I don't know why, but okay, and we're just not. Yeah, it's flashed for a minute. I don't know what it is, unless you want to try to replace the battery, but that's about all we can do. Okay, let's go back to this, and I'm sorry about these technical problems we're having. So let's go back to this. So what the POM says is that if a trust holds legal title to a house, the eligible individual will be considered living in his or her own home based on a concept that Social Security calls an equitable ownership under a trust. An eligible individual does not receive in-kind support and maintenance in the form of rent-free shelter while living in a home in which he or she has an ownership interest. Therefore, an individual with equitable home ownership under a trust does not receive rent-free shelter. Also, payment of rent by a beneficiary to the trust has no effect on the SSI payments as well. Now, before this went into place, what we used to do is we would do our best to try to charge the beneficiary fair market rent because the house was owned by the trust here. But when this changed about mid-2000s, this made things a whole lot easier. So here's the thing. If the home is owned in a special needs trust. Notice it doesn't say third party or first party, it just says a special needs trust. We're going to count it as living in their own home because they have equitable ownership. So even though the beneficiary has an ownership interest in the home, and if living in the home they do not receive ISM in the form of rent-free shelter, purchase of the home or payment of a monthly mortgage by the trust is a disbursement from the trust to a third party, and it's going to result in an ISM reduction. Remember, mortgage payment was one of the 10 things that they counted. So here's what it says. If the trust is used to purchase the home with a mortgage and the individual lives in the home in the month of purchase here, then they're going to have, there would be ISM for that month. But each of the subsequent months, the mortgage payment would result in payment as ISM as well, equal to no more than the presumed maximum value. So here's an example. If a home is purchased with a mortgage of $1,500 a month, then even though the beneficiary is living in the home and has an equitable ownership because the trust is paying the mortgage, there would be a $270 reduction in benefits, versus a home purchased with no mortgage would have 0 reductions. Well, what if our beneficiary actually likes electricity, water, and that sort of thing? Well, if the trust pays for other shelter or household operating expenses, these payments would be income in the form of ISM in the month payment is made. And countable shelter expenses are listed. Once again, these are our 10 things that they count. Okay, so if the trust pays for improvements or renovations to the home, then they don't receive income because that was not on the list of things that Social Security counts for SSI recipients. So disbursements from the trust for improvements that increase the value of the resource, and unlike household operating expenses, that doesn't count as ISM either. So let's say you have a house here and there's an improvement made to the house, let's say adding a deck or a hot tub or that kind of thing that raises the value, that doesn't have any effect at all on the SSI. Now here's a common situation that we run into all the time. We have many beneficiaries that either live in manufactured homes or trailers or in condominiums, okay? So let's look at what paying the trailer space and the condominium payments might be. So once again, when we're dealing with trailer space, use of land is not considered a household cost. Thus, if an individual receives land or the use of land without charge, this does not result in ISM. Similar, if third-party payments of real property tax, rent, or mortgage on the land alone, does not count here as ISM in the form of shelter. So trailer space rental fees, which is space alone, is not a household operating expense. For purposes of determining ISM, nor is it outside ISM if someone outside of the household pays the fee. But if the fee also includes payment for water, sewer, garbage, etc., then part of the household expense could be considered household ISM. So once again, here's an example. James Smith, an eligible individual, lives alone in a house trailer that he owns. The trailer is situated on the property of his brother Bill. James pays no rent for the use of the land, but Bill provides water and electricity free of charge. The free use of the land results in no ISM to James. However, James is charged with outside ISM based on the fair market value, the current market value of the water and electricity. Okay, so let's just take this just one step further, or let's go to the practical part of this. So when we have somebody who is in a trailer space who is on SSI, what we do is we try to figure out what the cost of the trailer space is. Let's say the total cost of the space is $500 a month, okay? Now, if that is only for the trailer space, we can pay for the trailer space without any reduction of SSI at all. But if part of that includes, let's say, water and garbage, which is pretty common, and let's say the value of the water and garbage is $50, if we pay this and we don't get a contribution of that $50 back from the beneficiary, there'll be a reduction of benefits by $30 in this case, because we'll have the $20 disregard here. So usually what we'll try to do is get the owners of the trailer space to figure out what is the value of the water and garbage, actually have the beneficiary pay us or pay them that amount. Let's say it's $50. So they could either pay $50 to the landlord and we would pay the $450, or they would pay us the $50 and we would pay the full $500 for the trailer space here, because oftentimes landlords don't want to get two checks. Now let's go to condos. We have many of our beneficiaries that are in condos. The same thing, if you've ever looked at the what is paid when you're paying for the condo expenses, when you're paying to the condo, the vast majority of what you're paying is for maintenance, okay? But let's say part of what is being paid is water and garbage and that sort of thing. We do the same thing. We try to figure out what the water and garbage and other things that would be on the household, on the ISM list, what those are here, and then either have the beneficiary pay that to the condo association and we would pay the balance, or pay us that amount and we would pay the entire amount here, so they don't take the ISM reduction. Here's the last item we're going to cover today, which is able accounts and housing for SSI recipients, okay? And this is something we're starting to use more and more at the Golden State Pool Trust, and we're finding that this has a lot of value. So let's go through this. This is going to come from a set of POMs, and if you were to Google SI space 01130.740, then the POM should pop up on the first page, so you could actually download this yourself. And a lot of what we have here comes straight out of the POMs. So what it says here is it's reminding us that qualified disability expenses for qualified disability expenses for able accounts here are very similar to ISM here. And that would include mortgage, real estate taxes, rent, heating, fuel, gas, electricity, water, sewer, and garbage removal. Okay, so here's what the POMS is saying if you're using an ABLE account to pay for these items. It's telling their eligibility workers to not count ABLE account distributions as income. A distribution from an ABLE account is not income, but it's a conversion of a resource from one form to another, okay? Do not count distributions from an ABLE account as income, regardless of whether it is for a non-housing qualified disability expense, a housing qualified disability expense, or a non-qualified expense. It's basically telling the eligibility worker to not count payments from a ABLE account, no matter what it is used for, okay, here. Now, the real important concept as we go through this is that if somebody puts money into an ABLE account and turns around and pays for the housing, what they're basically doing is they're converting their assets into the assets of the ABLE beneficiary, and the ABLE beneficiary is now using their own assets to pay for their housing, and that's why there is no reduction. So let's go through some examples here. Using an ABLE account to avoid ISM reduction. And this is what I call a little help from my friends. So let's say Belinda has been disabled from birth. And one thing important in ABLE programs is that you have to show that you were disabled before the age of 26. And let's say she receives $910.72 a month in SSI. A major expenditure really for all Californians, it's not just for Belinda, but for all Californians, is housing. And what she would like to do is she would like to move into a nice and safe apartment at $1,000 a month. Now that's probably not going to be a house in the Bay Area. Maybe it'll be a house in the Central Valley somewhere, or an apartment. So her family offers some rental assistance. So if what she were to do were, let's say the family were to give Belinda $1,000 directly and have her in turn around and pay those housing expenses. Here, that's not going to work because it's going to be counted as unearned income. So that's certainly not going to work. And her SSI would be completely eliminated. Let's say instead they were to pay the landlord directly. That would count as outside ISM here, and it would reduce her benefits by the presumed maximum value, which would reduce her benefits by, once again, $270. But let's say her parents were to contribute $1,000 a month into her ABLE account, and then in turn, Belinda takes the $1,000 and pays the landlord from the ABLE account. There would be no reduction of her SSI, okay? I mean, this can have profound effects for SSI recipients and for practitioners that do work with folks that are on benefits. I would guess that at least twice a week, I'm running into somebody where this could be really useful. Here's another variation of this. I had a situation, if we go back to what we had learned about calculating household expenses. So what had happened in that case is that we have a mother who was taking care of her daughter, and let's say that the household expenses were $3,600 for the house, and her mother, father, and the SSI recipient is living in the house. Because it was $1,200 a month, you couldn't possibly pay that with $910.72, so she was taking the ISM reduction. She'd actually attended one of my lectures, and she said, well, how can I make this work? And I said, well, try this. Set up an ABLE account, okay? And we tend to use the Stable program out of Ohio, okay? So open up a Stable account. And then what you do is put $1,000 in the account. Now, it turns out that her daughter lacked capacity here. So for those of you that study ABLE, here it can be, an ABLE account can be established and managed by a parent if the child lacks capacity. Okay, so in this case, that's exactly what they're doing. She would put the $1,000 a month into the ABLE account. Then she would turn around and pay herself that same $1,000, plus in this case, take $200 out of her SSI. Now her daughter is paying her entire amount. And Social Security increased her daughter's SSI back up to the maximum today would be $910.72. For these families, that works out to about $3,000 a year, and for families, that is a lot of money. So this is a technique that you could use whether you're using a trust or it's coming from an outside here. And in this case, with the mother, she's using the same $1,000, just putting it in the ABLE account and taking it out every month. Okay, so with that. Now remember, when you're computing what's ISM, there are 10 items that you look at when you're computing these things. So once again, it's not every dollar of expense. Here is our last code, which is 1693. Okay, so once again, that is our last code. So let's finish this up with one last scenario, which I call Mia's Casa, Sue's Casa, which is providing a residence and maximizing SSI. And we're going to take a lot of what we've learned and put it all together here. So Sue Casa wants to provide her daughter, Mia, with a home to live in. Sue's concerned that if she puts the property in Mia's name, it will be subject to a lien. Additionally, if Mia were someday unable to live in the home, or she sold it, it could interfere with her benefits eligibility. Remember, there's a 6-month period to move from one home to another. And often we'll have times when people want to buy down, or it may be that she just can't live in the home any longer. And so the problem is, if you put it in Mia's name and someday she's unable to live in it, Here, it could really interfere if it had to be disposed of with Medi-Cal eligibility. That's why I almost always suggest to parents here to put the home in a third-party trust here and let Mia live in it. Sue is able to purchase the home, and rather than give the title to Mia, she titles it into a third-party special needs trust. Now, you might remember what it says is an eligible individual for SSI does not receive in-kind support and maintenance in the form of rent-free shelter while living in a home in which he or she has an ownership interest. Accordingly, an individual with equitable ownership under a trust here does not receive rent-free shelter. We had gone over that earlier. But if the trust pays other shelter or household operating expenses, these payments would be income in the form of in-kind support and maintenance in the month the payment is made. So, Mia can live in the house without paying any rent because she has an equitable ownership. She's still going to have problems paying the property taxes and utilities without some sort of assistance. So Sue CASA transfers enough funds in Mia's ABLE account, either monthly or annually, to allow her to pay the taxes and utilities with no reduction in benefits. Sue also establishes a Golden State Pool Trust account for Mia to continue making the contributions to Mia's ABLE account in the event that she passes away or loses capacity. Both Sue and Mia feel much more secure because they feel like they have the best of both worlds. Sue has provided a residence and if Mia were unable to remain in the residence, the house could be sold and used for her needs without disrupting her eligibility for benefits. If Mia were to be sued, the assets in the Special Needs Trust are protected as well. So, just in taking this, and I'm going to see if we have anybody online. This has been approved for 1 unit of MCLE credit by the State Bar, and each section of this program has the code, so you should make sure that you have the code. If you don't have the form in front of you, make sure that you wrote down those codes here. And once again, Shelley or Amy here can forward you the form in order to apply for CLE credit. And to reach Amy, you would reach her at amy@gspt.org. Okay, let's see real quick if we have any questions here. So anyway, do we have any questions here? And at this point, it looks like we don't. Okay, well anyway, thank you for watching, and for those of you that have been watching, we are going to move to another platform very soon here so that we don't run into these problems. I'm sorry for the technical problems we ran into here. And also I will be re-recording this offline and putting it upline, so if you would like to watch it later, okay? Anyway, with that, I want to thank you so much for watching today here. And this is Steve Dale as the trustee of the Golden State Pool Trust signing off.